I am a mess of emotions right now. I don't know if I should be excited for William Byron and Matt DiBenedetto or completely devastated for Jimmie Johnson and my boy Matt Kenseth. A real mix of emotions after tonight's epic battle at Daytona. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. Today's episode of Out of the Groove is brought to you by Alka Seltzer. Alka Seltzer starts neutralizing acid in seconds for heartburn relief. These days your health is extremely important, so make sure you are feeling 100%. If you have a stomach ache, heartburn, anything like that, make sure Alka Seltzer is your go-to. They've got you covered. Alka Seltzer, of course, is available at Walmarts everywhere. Proud sponsor of Out of the Groove. Thank you to them for sponsoring tonight's episode of the show. We have so much to get to tonight. I think it's safe to say that NASCAR moving the regular season Cup Series finale to Daytona, the Oval, it was the right call. It was a good decision. Tonight's race lived up to all of the hype and maybe then some. In my opinion, this race had something for everyone. And I hate it when people describe something like, oh, this movie has something for everyone. This video game has something for everyone. This race has something for, but it really was in this case. You had clean racing throughout really the entirety of the first 140, 150 laps. There were no cautions for incidents, except for James Davison blew a tire at one point. But besides that single car incident, for the first 145 laps or so, there were no accidents anywhere to be seen. Just good, clean, but still aggressive Daytona Superspeedway pack racing. It was pretty great for the first, like I said, 80, 90% of this race. You had carnage at the very end for fans who were rooting for chaos and pandemonium. The last 15 or so laps took about an hour to complete, as is pretty standard for Daytona these days. Couple of big wrecks, but at the very least, the big wrecks that did happen, which we will talk about later in this video, at least happened with guys going for the win, going for the lead, you know? I hate it when a big 12-car wreck happens like mid-pack, especially early in the race. It's like, what are y'all doing? You're not even racing for the win. Like, at least the things that happened in this race, the big wrecks, happened because guys were putting it all on the line to get the win, in some cases to get into the playoffs. So at least people were being aggressive for the right reasons. But this race had wrecks. This race had strategy. The entirety of stage 2 was this weird fuel mileage pit strategy game being played between the Chevys and the Fords. And it was interesting to see it work out for some, not work out for others. Of course, the playoff battle. There was plenty of points racing, good old-fashioned points racing to be seen tonight in both stage 1, stage 2, and of course the end of the race with William Byron, Matt DiBenedetto, and Jimmie Johnson vying for the final 2 playoff spots. It wasn't decided until the very final restart, so we have a lot to get to tonight. I hope I don't miss anything too important, but this episode's going to be all over the place. Let's start with the finish, I guess, because William Byron, who we had on the show, on the live stream just a couple of nights ago, came through. He gets his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory. He put the win and you're in. That locked him into the playoffs. Of course, at that point, he had enough points on the final restart to make his way into the playoffs as well. But now this win gives him a few extra playoff points, so maybe he can make a little bit of a run at things. But William Byron, in the biggest and brightest moment with, they said 20,000 fans were at Daytona. It looked like more than that. I'm going to say 30 or 40,000 fans. That's just my estimate. But in front of a decently sized crowd, a crowd you could actually hear, which we really haven't seen much of in the last several months. On the biggest stage, in the biggest moment, William Byron came through and got the job done. So congratulations to William Byron. This is the first time that the 24 car has won in the NASCAR Cup Series since Jeff Gordon won his final race at Martinsville in 2015. And this is Chad Knaus, 7-time champion crew chief's first win in the Cup Series since 2017 with Jimmie Johnson. So a lot of firsts, a lot of history in this win today, but perhaps the most important part is that this locks William Byron into the playoffs, which is a real accomplishment, especially when you look at some of the teams that missed out on the playoffs this year. We'll talk about some of them. Eric Jones, who had a really fast car tonight, ran up near the front, actually led a lot of laps, got caught up in the first big wreck. That's a Joe Gibbs Racing car they beat. And then, of course, and we'll talk about it more, Jimmie Johnson, the 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, William Byron's teammate, misses the playoffs as a result of Byron's win. Really not necessarily as a result of Byron's win, because Byron's win really only happened because of the second big crash, which Jimmie Johnson was unfortunately caught up in, but it doesn't take away from William Byron's win. This is, it's Daytona, not necessarily indicative of, a broader trend that William Byron, Byron has not run very well consistently this year at mile and a half, at short tracks, anything. I think he's been pretty inconsistent this year, but a win is a win, and the pressure that was, on William Byron's shoulders all night long tonight, makes this win, honestly, I think bigger than your average summer Daytona win for a lot of reasons. So credit to William Byron, Chad Knaus, and that whole team. I'm sure the fans enjoyed seeing a first-time winner tonight. I know I did. So that's what I said at the beginning. This is a mess of emotions because I was really excited for William Byron. Matt DiBenedetto comes across the line just good enough to lock himself into the playoffs as well. This is Matt DiBenedetto's first ever playoff appearance. And Matt DiBenedetto, his rise just in the last 2 years is quite remarkable. 2 years ago, he was racing for Go Fast Racing, going nowhere in his Cup career. He'd have a couple decent runs, be like, oh, look at Matt DiBenedetto in the top 10 in the 32 car. That's impressive, but beyond the occasional decent run, he was going nowhere with his career. He'd spent the few years before that starting parking for BK Racing. Matt DiBenedetto, 2 years ago, was on the verge of becoming anonymous, becoming an absolute bust in the NASCAR Cup Series. But he turned things around. He bet on himself. You guys know how the story goes. He took a chance, left the 32 car without another contract lined up. Levine Family Racing switching to Toyota, tapped him to drive the 95 last year. He had a breakout season, had a couple great runs, almost won the Bristol night race almost a year ago now. So last year was a breakout season. And then when Paul Menard retired, he actually handpicked Matt DiBenedetto to be his replacement in the 21 car, a Penske affiliate car this year. Very exciting. This is the best car Matt DiBenedetto has ever driven in his NASCAR Cup career, and I think the expectations were high off the bat. And I will say this, I'll be the first to say this, he's disappointed me this year. Matt DiBenedetto, the fact that he just snuck into the playoffs, and coming into today, there was a real question whether or not he'd even hold on to make the playoffs, that's a disappointment to me. This is a 21 car that, with Ryan Blaney in 2017, won a race and made it to the round of 8 in the playoffs. Matt DiBenedetto's pretty good. I don't know if he's necessarily Ryan Blaney good, but I think he's pretty darn good. He's older than Ryan Blaney was in 2017, so my expectations were fairly high for Matt DiBenedetto this year. At the bare minimum, he had to make the playoffs, and with a clutch performance tonight, a nice wreck avoidance late, he did just that. So I'm excited for Matt DiBenedetto making the playoffs for the first time in his career, especially since his future is still somewhat uncertain beyond this season. This is huge for his, I guess, personal driving stock price. But I'm just happy for him and for the Wood brothers, of course, getting back into the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. So there's a lot of highs, but we do have to talk about the lows. We have to talk about Jimmie Johnson. Jimmie Johnson, I think, did almost everything right tonight. He got stage points in stage 1. I talked about how in stage 2, the Chevys were kind of on a different fuel strategy than some of the Fords especially, and Jimmie Johnson was the Chevy leading that pack on that alternative strategy. They chased down the leaders. Jimmie Johnson drove up and got stage points in stage 2. So Jimmie Johnson did everything he was supposed to do those first 2 stages, and then he just found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time in stage 3. Let's talk about the wreck that took Jimmie Johnson out with just 2 laps to go here tonight. Jimmie was up running in and around the top 5. You see here, Bubba Wallace actually makes a move around the outside of Logano to take the lead. Hamlin gets a huge push from Matt Kenseth, gets into the back of Joey Logano, which turns Logano up into Wallace. That stacks everybody up. Byron makes it 4 wide. Joey Logano then, maybe with damage, maybe a tire going down, spins out in front of the pack. He collects Matt Kenseth, who then collects Jimmie Johnson. Credit to the 48 team. They knew they just had to make 1 lap, and they sawed and grinded at that car on pit road during the yellow flag, and Jimmie Johnson was actually able to run still in this race. I thought that car was junk when it hit the wall, but he completed a lap. So credit to them for at least being able to do that, but that was the wreck that ended 7-time champion Jimmie Johnson's shot at making the 2020 playoffs. So Jimmie Johnson will end his full-time NASCAR Cup Series career by missing the playoffs 2 straight years. Now, Jimmie Johnson, if you remember, back in 2018 when he made the playoffs, he held the record at that point. In 2018, Jimmie Johnson was the only driver to have made the playoffs or the chase, whatever, during every year since it had been implemented. The chase was introduced in 2004, and from 2004 all the way to 2018, Jimmie Johnson made it every single year. And it used to be harder to get in. They used to only let 10 drivers in, then it was like 12 or so. Obviously, the last few years it's been 16, but for a long time there, it was a real accomplishment just to make the chase. Jimmie Johnson did it from 2004 to 2018, 15 straight seasons. Yes, he's going 0 for 2 here at the end, but I don't think we can forget that streak of dominance and how historical that was. But certainly going out on a down note, the Ally years, whether it's a black paint scheme, white paint scheme, doesn't seem to matter, have not been too kind to Jimmie Johnson. And tonight, it really was just bad luck. I mean, that's really all you can chalk it up to. I know I hate to just chalk things up to bad luck, but Daytona's kind of the place it happens. I mean, Jimmie Johnson, like I said, did everything right. Had a good car. Strategy was great. They got stage points in 1 and 2, and just found themselves in the wrong lane, I guess, at the very end of this race. So I don't know what else he could have done differently. Obviously, hindsight, he would have just maybe like lagged back or something, knowing that there was going to be a wreck. But Jimmie Johnson, I think, did everything he was supposed to do and just it was not enough, unfortunately, tonight. So I feel for all the Jimmie Johnson fans out there. Of course, Jimmie Johnson still has 10 more races to maybe get a win. I'm sure he's going to be competitive here down the stretch. They've shown some pretty good speed the last few weeks, and even tonight. I thought they had one of the best cars tonight, but did not get the job done. It's disappointing. It really is. This has not been the year it was supposed to be for Jimmie Johnson. Jimmie Johnson, arguably the greatest driver in NASCAR history, certainly, without question, the greatest statistical driver, at least of the last 20 years. I would say the greatest driver just in general the last 20 years. This year was supposed to be a celebration of Jimmie Johnson. He was going to get to go to all these tracks one last time, salute the fans. The fans are going to get to salute him right back. We saw, kind of a sneak peek of this at the Daytona 500 this year with his family waving the green flag. At California this year, his home track, fans poured support out for Jimmie Johnson that weekend, but then COVID hit, and everything since then has gone horribly wrong. Obviously, iRacing, when we went and did iRacing, Jimmie Johnson was the laughing stock of the Pro Invitational because he's not a sim racer, so we got to laugh at Jimmie Johnson running 30th every weekend during the Pro Invitational days, which Jimmie Johnson didn't deserve that, even though he was pretty bad most of the time. But then we come back from the hiatus, and Jimmie Johnson has not gotten to race in front of most of the fans here in the country this year. Most of the races being held without fans or maybe very limited attendance. He has not gotten the send-off he deserved, which is why a lot of fans are hoping he comes back next year. I think there's a very real chance Jimmie Johnson runs a cup race next season or two, but he certainly is not racing full-time, and I would even say what I just said is fairly unlikely. We'll see Jimmie Johnson in an IndyCar next year, at least a couple of times, it sounds like. So he's not done racing anytime soon. Fans hopefully will get a chance to see him behind the wheel of a race car next year. And what really sucks for Jimmie Johnson, honestly, is if it wasn't for that positive COVID test earlier this summer, Jimmie Johnson's in the playoffs right now. I know you can point to, the disqualification at Charlotte when he finished second but got credited with 0 points because they failed post-race. Obviously, you can look at that, but the COVID thing, he never had symptoms. That has to really eat up at Jimmie Johnson. I'm sure he's going to really that's going to eat at him for a while, knowing that he had to sit out the Brickyard 400, and getting 0 points there, literally cost him a playoff berth. Let's be honest. But certainly, it's safe to say Jimmie Johnson did not deserve to go out this way. 2020 has been a terrible year for everyone. Come on, let's be real. But just talking about Jimmie Johnson specifically, yeah, it's been rough. So I feel for Jimmie Johnson fans out there, especially newer Jimmie Johnson fans who didn't get to watch him during those 5 straight championship years, which I'll be honest, I got a little tired of Jimmie Johnson. But if you're a fan of Jimmie Johnson, especially if you're a newer fan of Jimmie Johnson, I feel for you. I hate to see a guy go out this way. I'm a Matt Kenseth fan. How do you think I feel after watching him race in a mediocre car in 2018 and then this year? Gosh, this year, outside of 2 races, Matt Kenseth has not been good. So I understand, at least to an extent, how you guys feel. Of course, watching Jimmie Johnson have these issues on a weekly basis for now almost 3 seasons, I understand. It's not the way Jimmie Johnson deserved to go out, so it is disappointing. Tonight's very polarizing. I don't really know how to feel. Anyway, let's look at the top finishers from tonight's race. You see there, of course, William Byron. Let's get positive again. Gets his first career win. That's great. His teammate Chase Elliott finishes second, just kind of snuck in there. Nobody really talked about Chase Elliott all night long. Shout out Bubba Wallace getting a top 5 finish. Is that his first top 5 of the season? It might be. I'm not sure there. So great run for Bubba Wallace. He, like I said earlier, had a shot at the win briefly until that final wreck kind of caused him some damage. But also Brendan Gaughan. How is it Brendan Gaughan always finds himself near the front of the field at the end of these races? How does he do that? De Benedetto only ended up 11th, but that was good enough given the cushion he had coming into tonight. Jimmie Johnson actually still ended up with the top 20 because of the team's excellent repair work there, given the circumstances at the end. So he gets a 17th place finish. Could have been a lot worse. Couple drivers you don't see here, but finishing outside the top 30, guys like Kyle and Kurt Busch, Eric Jones. The first big wreck, which I haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about, that took out the most cars, happened when Tyler Reddick made a move. He made a move. He admitted himself afterwards it was a dumb move and that everyone deserves to be angry at him, without a doubt. So I respect Tyler Reddick for understanding and knowing that it was an over-aggressive mistake. But Tyler Reddick tried to move up in front of Kyle Busch and just wasn't clear. Put him and Busch both into the wall. That stacked up the field, caused a huge wreck. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, if you're going to cause a big wreck like this, at least you better be going for the win when you do it. And in this case, Reddick was going not only for a win, but also for a playoff spot, because that wreck happened with 10 laps to go. So we were in crunch time there. If he clears Kyle Busch right there, that's a big deal. He commands the field for a little while. But certainly just a bonehead move, and Ryan Newman called him out on it. Eric Jones called him out on it afterwards. Surprisingly, Kurt and Kyle Busch were pretty tame in their post-race interviews, but Jones and Newman were very unhappy. I'm sure many other drivers were very unhappy as well, because it was just a bad move. It was a stupid move. He wasn't clear. It was a move that I quite frankly cannot believe. When I saw him drifting up, I couldn't believe he was doing it. And sure enough, it didn't work. But that was what set off the first big wreck tonight. And yeah, it was all on Tyler Reddick. It just is what it is. At least he's going for the win. If you're gonna do that, you better at least be going for the win. Anyway, those are the most notable storylines from tonight's race. Overall, I thought this was a very good Daytona race. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I think NASCAR made the right decision putting Daytona as the regular season finale. Yes, it's a wild card race, but NASCAR had already committed to having 3 wild card super speedway races before the playoffs anyways. I think it just makes sense to build the anticipation to the max by making Daytona the final regular season race. I loved what they did this year because they moved the Brickyard 400 to the July 4th weekend, and that boosted its ratings significantly over last year's Brickyard 400, and it needed that boost. Meanwhile, obviously, we don't know what the TV ratings are going to do tonight, but the attendance looks solid for a pandemic NASCAR race. The attendance looked decent, I think, for with all things considered tonight. I'll be curious to see what the TV ratings look like, but I'm sure tonight's Daytona race is going to be very similar to what it usually draws on July 4th weekend. So I would like to see Daytona as the finale, the regular season finale going forward. Of course, we don't know the 2021 schedule yet. Some people, I think they're just trolls, are saying, why not make Daytona the championship race? As long as we have this format, I never want to see that. Let that be on record right now. I never want to see Daytona or Talladega as the Final Four championship race ever, as long as this is the format. Let me make that clear. I thought the drama, the intensity was through the roof all night long. I had a ton of fun watching. Let's go and put this thing on the Groovy Gauge because I got a lot of positive things to say. I'm in a good mood now. Even in this episode alone, my emotions are all over the dang place. But yeah, on the Groovy Gauge, I'm going to give the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona with its new day and time. I'm going to give it, it's tough because I gave Talladega earlier this year this score, but I'm going to give it a 100%. Now, Talladega earlier this summer, I said was one of the best NASCAR races I remember watching in recent memory. I don't think this race was quite as good as just a pure NASCAR race because that Talladega race, they were 2 and 3 wide all race long. The wrecks really didn't come until the end of the race. It was just fun. Tonight's race got pretty sloppy at the end, again, as seems to be common at the super speedways, but overall, I think the points battle and really just the added weight of this race being the final regular season race with guys like Stenhouse, Reddick, Eric Jones, drivers like that, Matt Kenseth sniffing the lead at different points in this race, it just upped the ante that much more because we knew what all was on the line in this race. So with that all in mind, with that all being considered, I think that made tonight's race more exciting to watch from my couch than a normal super speedway race. So I think that gives this race a boost. So I mean, I got to give it a perfect score again though, 100% on the Groovy Gauge for tonight's race at Daytona. I loved it. I know there's a whole movement for more short tracks. You see on social media, hashtag more short tracks. Can we start saying hashtag more super speedway tracks? Is that a thing we're allowed to say? I know we tear up a lot of equipment at these tracks, but I'll be honest, it's the best racing NASCAR has. That might be controversial because I know it's just flat-footed and it's all aero and it's all drafting and some certain driver skills are not needed. I get it. It's not the purest form of racing, if that's even a thing. The super speedways are the best things NASCAR has right now. NASCAR's got road courses and those races are often pretty good, but Formula One does road courses, IndyCar does road courses, NASCAR's got the mile and a half, but nobody wants any more mile and a half. Mile and a halfs are done. NASCAR sure has short tracks, but the Cup Series only races at 3 of them, and Richmond's not really a traditional short track. I'm just saying, what other motorsports put on the kind of show NASCAR puts on at Daytona and Talladega? I mean, I'm just saying, that's what sets NASCAR apart. There's a reason the Daytona 500 is the sport's biggest race. There's a reason Daytona and Talladega pull in the biggest ratings every year. It's because this is what sets NASCAR apart. So, I don't know. I'm going to start planting that seed. I'm not saying we build another super speedway somewhere. I don't think that's going to happen, but I don't know. I know they're talking about they're going to do the road course for the Clash next year. Scrap that. I want to see it on the oval again. That's my opinion. I don't know. I'm sure that's going to be controversial, but I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Tonight's race was amazing. Talladega earlier this year was amazing. The Daytona 500, albeit with that scary crash at the end, was amazing. There has not been a bad super speedway race since, I really have to think. I mean, last year's summer Daytona race was disappointing because it was rain shortened, but it was a phenomenal race before that. 2018. I'm thinking 2018. Oh, that was the last one. Talladega, fall 2018, when Stewart Haas Racing just dominated that race. I don't know how they did that, but okay, that one was kind of boring. That was the only bad super speedway race I can think of the last several years. That one was pretty bad. Okay, I'll give you that one. Anyway, I'll stop this video. I got too much stuff swirling around in my head right now, but thank you guys for bearing with me. I hope I hit on all the key moments from tonight's race. It was fantastic. Congratulations to William Byron. Great to see him get his first career win. Really great to see Matt DiBenedetto clinch a playoff spot for the first time in his career, but it sucks for Jimmie Johnson. There's so many good guys in this field tonight that I was rooting for to grab those last spots, and unfortunately, some of them had to miss out. It sucks that it's Jimmie Johnson. I know there's a lot of disappointed fans out there, but I don't know, we still got 10 more races, and I have a feeling Jimmie's gonna pull some surprises out for us. So thank you all for watching this video. That's all I've got. Again, a big thank you to Alka Seltzer for sponsoring this episode. Alka Seltzer neutralizes acids within seconds for heartburn relief. You can get Alka Seltzer at Walmart, of course. A big thank you to Alka Seltzer for sponsoring this episode of Out of the Groove. Be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. Of course, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Continue the conversation over there. Of course, also a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Couldn't do this show without their fantastic support, so thank you a lot. You notice the set behind me looks a little different than usual. Still moving some things around perhaps, but yeah, I know that's a little distracting, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty big. I honestly didn't think about how big the side of NASCAR cars, like the doors of NASCAR cars are. That's from Matt Kenseth in 2013, his Husky Home Depot car. Look at that. Perfect match. Father and son, literally. All right, well, anyway, thanks for watching this episode, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. I'll see y'all again real soon.